Everyone speak up in their loud voices today. All right, are we recording? We're ready to go. All right, welcome to our work session for July 5th. We are happy to have you all here. Council members, is there anything that anyone would like to review from the regular agenda? I like how I almost always ask that question. That's good agenda creation. One day. It'll happen. All right, let's start with our manager and meeting updates. And we will talk slowly and well. Emily, do you have any?
I do not. I really, I do not have any.
All right, Karen, we're gonna skip you and come back. You're ready to settle in. David, do you have any updates?
I was just gonna thank Scott, our Katie, our tire parks department, and staff for an unbelievable parade and fireworks display last night. And a lot of people comment that they thought it was the best fireworks display they've seen in Webster. So.
Pam?
Yes, there are two updates, both of my commissions.
Lovely.
Both of my commissions met in the past since our last meeting, so I wanted to review that. First thing, on June 22nd, Rhonda Burnett, who is a community conservation planner from the Missouri Department of Conservation, visited Webster Groves to present her manual called Conservation Planning Tools for Missouri Communities. She was invited by Green Space Advisory Commission as part of their Eco Ed series. In the morning, I attended discussion along with city staff and commission members from sustainability and Green Space. The chair of Green Space organized this, and this is where we did have a roundtable and walk about in Webster just to show her current projects, and she told us how we could apply her manual to that. And then later that night, she had a presentation at Webster University. We're saying the same things. We also learned new things about case studies from other cities and communities, and it was a very good day. This manual, I will give a copy to Dr. Peoples, and I know Yvonne took a copy, and then I will send you all a link to it. It's pretty valuable. And then the parade was a lot of fun. This is the first time I was right in front of the band, and so that was really fun. They kind of set the beat for walking through Webster. And then finally, on June 22nd in the morning, the Business Development Commission met, and they talked about marketing ideas for Shop Local. That's one of their new focuses for that. They also talked about a QR code interactive map, which is something that they got a lot of feedback at our coffee for. And so there's an RFQ out for that, for creating the interactive map. And then finally, they decided to do those copies. It's such a success. They're going to do those every 6 months. So the first one will be in August, and I can update you all on the content of that, and following will be February. That's all I have.
Nothing there.
I guess I have a computer. Sorry.
So Sarah, none of the microphones are working. So that's our microphone. So as loudly as you possibly can speak.
Okay, sorry. I am going to need to hopefully find somebody to swap on commission assignment with me. I've got a work conflict that's not going away on the mornings of the overturn business district, unfortunately. So maybe we can talk about that after anybody's interested or something. But just
When do they meet?
On Tuesday mornings at 8.
Second Tuesday of the month.
Second Tuesday of the month. Sorry. Yes. My problem is a Tuesday morning. I'm not paying anyone for this opportunity. In fact, it is an honor you are selected. They're a great group. Thank you very much.
Yes.
That's it.
Mr. City Attorney,
I have no updates.
Madam City Manager.
Only a big thanks to all the staff that helped with the parade and fireworks, and just lots of staff involvement, and it was a great weekend.
Excellent. I just have a couple of things. I participated on the executive committee of the Municipal League of Metropolitan St. Louis, we had our annual planning session, the morning of meetings, just a couple things that came out of that. A couple issues that will come back, including the proposal to get rid of what the sales tax on groceries and feminine hygiene products is going to come back to the state legislature next year. There are a couple issues like that the league wants to take a position on, and I'd like us to discuss that because I'm not quite sure what your positions are on that. And I don't want to speak for Webster Groves unless we all have a clear understanding of what we want to do as a council. So we'll worry about that later. We have, a while until the legislature comes back, but it's important, I think, that we think about that. The dues are going up back to pre-COVID levels, so we'll pay a little bit more to be part of the municipal league. But one other update was on the juvenile crime and car theft, that issue. They have encouraged, and the administrative secretary for the Supreme Court has created a task force about how they apply what's called Rule 28, which is how you win and how you hold juveniles. And that's one part of the issue is that juveniles aren't held regularly or even very often. So they expect sometime this fall some recommendations that might help us being the collective metropolitan area, figure out what's a good way to work on that. And just to be absolutely clear, no one's saying just throw everybody in jail. They're trying to work out a system so there is a consequence and there's a path out of that as well. Also, the Charter Review Advisory Board met. They have scheduled a community-wide open house for August 9th from 5 to 7 at the rec center. A postcard will go out next week, I think, or maybe late this week. Soon, it'll go out soon.
Going to the printer.
Okay, so it will be out soon to every residential address in Webster Grove, so everyone should be invited to it. They're going to have, it's going to be actually a little bit like the Business Development Commission open house. Different issue areas will be set up at tables with members of the commission to help explain what the questions are and take feedback from them.
What day is it?
That is August 9th from 5 to 7 p.m. at the rec center. And then I also have just to say my thanks to everyone, including all of you who ran part of the way to catch up. I certainly enjoyed the 4th and hope you all did too. And Scott, I do hope you will. And we keep talking about Scott because yes, you do a lot of the planning, but we also have a great police presence as well as a great presence from the fire department and public works does a lot of work. It is a top to bottom staffing challenge. And so we are really grateful to all of you for that because I agree with you. I've heard lots of people. Somebody said to me that this is the first regular 4th of July since COVID. And I thought that was kind of an interesting way to think about it. So, all right. So we're going to go on to our Karen. Yes, Karen is here. Hi, Karen.
Hi, how are
Do you have any updates?
No, I don't.
All right.
But I will again thank the all the departments and everybody for the parade. It was great. I got a good workout in trying to keep up with the fire truck. And but I got a lot of good feedback from people too, that they really
Good. All right, we will now proceed to our topics. Our only topic today is the strategic planning. And if I might say a word or two as we get started, we have staff here today. You all received a document that included their tactics that they have developed for their department that go under our strategical areas. And I first of all want to thank all department directors for that work. And also thank Dr. People for her work with department directors in putting together this document for us. I will say, we all, I think, agree that this is not a document that we write and then we toss aside. It's a living, working, breathing document, but we haven't officially adopted anything. So I would like to get us to the point tonight where we feel like we can adopt something as opposed to continuing down the road of planning. And Neil, the first question is to you. Do we just adopt this document? Do we do a revolution? What is our best procedure to state officially that we've endorsed this document?
I think the best way to do that is with a resolution that includes the document. That way, someone who's looking for this would be able to go to the minutes and see in the minutes there's a resolution endorsing the document on such and such.
Okay, so thank you. So I will tell you that my goal for the council tonight is that we get to a point where we then are ready to place on the regular agenda a resolution to adopt whatever document is. And I know that the department directors are each going to speak briefly. I don't think the plan is to go through every single tactic. It's to highlight a few things so that we can focus on maybe what is immediately doable or what are the kinds of things that we're most interested. Council is free to ask questions of individual department directors, and then we're going to have a discussion at the end if there anything that if there is anything we really want to say to staff. This one's really, really important that it goes to the head of the line. I think now is also the time to talk about that. I also do just want to remind council, and because the directors are all here, they need to hear this as well. This is a document that we'll work on over time. This isn't suggesting to departments that they have to do every single one of the things on this document right away. That's unrealistic for them. It's unrealistic for us to schedule in time. And so please hear those words. No one's saying run out there and do every single thing at this very moment. All right, so now that enough of my prelude here. Is there anything you would like to say before I call on our first department director?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You covered the bulk of it. So each of the directors you said are going to give a very brief overview. At no more than 2 minutes, they did not prepare presentations because the tactics are the presentation. And so please ask any questions that you have. I know you received this in advance of the meeting. But I want to thank the department directors and their teams. They spent quite a bit of time working on this and going over it. And it is a fluid document. It will improve and continue to evolve as time goes on and as we dig deeper into some of the tactics. And as you all know, sometimes the goals shift. So we'll just continue to review the document. So thank you.
All right. We're going to start off this evening with hearing from our director of Parks and Recreation. You can keep moving.
So is it me?
Yeah. I got the handy dandy cheat sheets that you all were informed of, so hopefully I'll stick to it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we have 2 documents from Parks and Directors, one for parks and one for recreation. Just a quick review or highlight of some of those on the park side. Include we're going to go out and seek some more citizen input a couple times a year via some surveys, additional discussions with our boards and commissions on policies and procedures and things of that nature. We're going to seek several grants, which will be part of the fiscal integrity and sustainability practices, and try to move some things more into our digital realm on our Civic Rec platform to get easier volunteer service through our Greenskeeper program by making it a little bit easier to navigate for those folks that would like to volunteer with us. And some of the parks highlights, again, a lot of these are several of these are the same with surveying our users and members, getting pricing guidance from our boards. We're going to try to offer some new programs in the DEI category for residents and also provide additional staffing. I'm sorry, not additional staffing, additional training for staff. Again, seeking out grant opportunities to install things like water bottle fillers, to reduce our plastic usage, and new LED lights and some things like that for energy efficiency. So those are the quick highlights, but happy to answer any questions.
I think this looks really good, Scott. I know I brought this up just briefly during the budget cycle, but I do think that it's probably worth thinking, and I think it would meet with our strategic goals of looking at our parks in comprehensively to assess whether we have too many, too few, whether it would be economical to sell off some land in order to either fund whatever it is the Parks Department and Recreation Department wants to do. I know it's probably not going to be popular, but I do think just based off of what I've seen is that maybe we have too few. It might not be too little of green space or too much of green space, but where it's at in the city and everything like that. And just thinking economically and also sustainably, and I think it would obviously help with potentially creating more vibrant economic force and diverse housing stuff. Maybe. I don't know exactly what was required in order to get that started. And I guess I'm asking the rest of my council members whether they'd be interested in doing something like that.
I noticed, which I thought was good, is that you've got dates on each of the tactics, which is helpful for us. And it seems like there's nothing more that goes out past a year from now. And so this would probably be overarching for all of the departments in our strategic plan, that we revisit this, you know, at a specified time, maybe every 6 months or 9 months, but we did it every 6 months, put it in January. So I'm just kind of putting it out there for all of them, that I think the short term is good as long as we revisit it regularly.
That goes back on as well. Looking for metrics, how you're going to measure that you have reached this goal. Some of your items mentioned annually within 6 months, or a budget year. I think we need something to say here, we're going to meet this goal last Saturday. I do see you have it on in some of them, March 24, March 1st, 2024. But then there's some like every year attacking about single grant opportunities and apply for one grant per year. Is that feasible? Is it feasible? 3, 5, 7? I don't know. I'm just saying it's just a statement out there that needs to have some type of indicator that we can look to see when it's going to be done. I would recommend to suggest those that you put the metrics on, do it, you know, year one where you're going to include public facing internal information. Being customer service. So yeah, what is that metric? What happened? Good, bad, you know, sad, happy, something that you can put your finger on and say people are making this goal for the company. And I'm gonna stress pretty much the same thing on all of them. Strengthening economic development. That's something that we need to look at starting today on through the next budget process. Is there any way that we can increase revenue or decrease expenses?
Right, other comments for Scott? I would just also, say to council, part of this idea about dates and when things get done has to do with how we ask for prioritization. So, if there's something that you feel like really should be at the front of the queue, then staff's going to need our help in talking about how long that's going to take or what that is. So, because there's some flexibility, because as I said, we're not doing all of these at once. So,
And I did it.
and that's just that I wasn't really pointing what you said. More channels.
I think it's just giving them the opportunity to say, I'm gonna get this done at this time without pressure.
And I was intrigued that you were one of the main departments to talk about this 4-day work weeks potentially, but I'm curious how that would look for Parks and Rec.
So I've done it at a previous city, and our park staff participated in it pretty well. And the crew was basically divided into an A crew and a B crew, and one of them would more or less would work Monday through Thursday this week, Tuesday through Friday next week in the pay period. So they'd actually get a 4-day work or a 4-day weekend and be off Friday and then Monday. And then the other crew would do the exact opposite. So that we had a full staff Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and a half staff on every Monday, Friday. Seemed to work out pretty well over there. Staff hasn't fully bought into that yet and wanted to go that way. They do make for long days, 10-hour days, doing manual labor. That could be a pretty long day in 90-degree heat and 100% humidity like it is in St. Louis right now. So something we're looking at. It may not go for everybody. Some of our other departments in the ice rink, some of those days are really long days, and they fluctuate and depend on the rentals. So any given day, the rental could be longer. So some 10-hour days for those staff could be helpful there as well.
Thanks.
All right, Scott, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Mark, you are number 2 on my list here of contestants.
Everyone. So on the planning tactics, you can kind of probably group them into 3 groups. One is related to magnet permits, online instructions, applications, things like that. There's another grouping that's on code amendments and the comp plan. And then the last would be on training of some sort. With the magnet and permits and things that are working for online applications, these are building off of things that we've been doing continually. So at any point in time, we have an amendment at CSI of something that we're doing to upgrade magnet to its next little piece or part, or adding new things on. And those are kind of ongoing, especially also with other departments, with parks starting to use it a little bit more, making sure police knows how to use it, different things like that. The code amendments are also similar. We're trying to keep it ongoing. It just depends on staff time. But we are trying to work on some of these code amendments. You'll see in here, the one related to housing. We had started some of it. It took a little bit of a backward step. There's a step that we could continue to move forward. The Plan Commission is eager to move on with some of these other code amendments. So as soon as I have the time to prep what they need, that can kick them forward. And then training is a pretty standard thing that we just need to get more regularly with our staff to add in. But that's kind of the basic summary of planning tactics.
All right, questions or comments from all?
That's the same thing I mentioned before. If you can put some type of metric to the management system, you make improvements. Whatever you end up with, I'd like to see that in there. Your goal are fairly specific, so.
So just so you know, with Magnet, it has a it's crazy how much data is in there, and it's really easy to pull out some of those metrics. So for example, someone says to me, I want to know how many occupancy permits you approved on rental properties. I can go in and just select certain columns and it produces a report. Same thing when we get requests for something. They want to know how many code complaints we answered in a 3-month time period. It's pretty easy to pull those things out. And then in addition, there's also a way where you can see how quickly people answered certain things, or when they went into the system and when they came out of the system. So that is a nice thing about that, is it produces, like, if someone asks for certain metrics, in most cases, we are able to generate that for you.
Yeah, it's not like you're going to chew all everything before. Just make sure you do.
I have a couple questions. I was curious how you kind of prioritize where to take Magnet next.
So we had a grand scheme when we first went in with Magnet of knowing all these other piece parts that we would expand to. So the way I took it when we first started it is, I was afraid for us to go, like, you can't just jump onto a bicycle without first having someone learn how to walk. So we've been taking it step by step, and as we've added each piece on, it's expanded our ability. So when we first went in with Magnet, we knew that we could get iPads for out in the field. So our inspectors have iPads now. Even though we didn't use it for the first couple of years, we knew it was available. So we've been expanding bit by bit each step to make it more and more available for different user means. So we kind of had a plan of action maybe 7 years out. Certain things have morphed slightly as we've been requested from, developers are asking for certain things in certain ways. So each step has been looking at what other cities have been able to do, and Magnet has been flexible with that. So the next piece that's about to go into place is that people, instead of having to call in, would be able to schedule their own inspections. And we would just then check them and make sure that there's a way that it blocks out so too many don't go in the same day. We've also about to roll out the ability to do a lot of our online permits. Right now, they email them into City Mail, and then we have to type all the information in. It's going to be that they can type their information directly in and attach things, and we'll be able to process. It will save a lot of time. So those are sort of our next steps, but we still have a few more already in the works that we've been thinking through, especially working with Parks Department and Public Works Department, trying to make sure that all is in the system, because every piece of property has all this data associated with it that can be used across departments.
And is there additional cost as you expand these, or does it stay?
As we, like, so the expansion to do the online permits, we did have to add a module, but as we've been thinking carefully about the modules we add, we're looking at what other things we can do under that same module. So this has really only been the first time we've had to add a module over the years. We've been able to expand using the same module. When we do minor changes, it's already covered in our service contract. So we're able to just email in and say, hey, we now, with chicken permits need to do this, this, and this, or we need this additional data. We're able to use the same module. We're trying to change business licenses so that it's all in the system and that all the departments can sign off in the system instead of with paper. That's already built in, doesn't have additional cost.
My other question was, if you could just speak a little bit about what it means to separate the license.
So with businesses right now, their business license is the occupancy permit. So when they come in with a business license, there's all these different sign-offs. Us doing permits, fire department looking at it, finance department making sure they have their sales tax due. There's all these steps. And the problem is for a lot of them, either to obtain the ability to start moving their furniture in and get their business going, it's been that until every single one of those steps is done, they don't have occupancy. We'd really like to separate those from one another. So while they're still waiting for the state of Missouri to get them something related to their taxes and other things, we would like to be able to give them the occupancy to be able to move forward. And I think if we can separate the two, it would really help make it move faster for businesses.
Tomorrow, you're talking here about reviewing occupancy codes and regulations for possible amendments. What was your thought around approach to that? I mean, how do you consider which ones require review or reconsideration or not? How do you?
So it's not that we're going to reconsider specific occupancy permits. It was the question that has come up in the last couple of years about whether we should be doing occupancy permits at all. So it was whether the code should be reviewed. There's two parts to it. There's the inspection, which a lot of people feel is important for safety. And then there's the permit itself, which is essentially a piece of paper where when they come in, we sign them up for trash and they put the people who are living there. And then that helps us know that they aren't moving, 10 people into a house that holds 6. And then it has been in the past used for the school district, and it's used sometimes for the fire department, if they're needing to know if there was a fire and they're wanting to make sure they're taking care of everybody who was in that particular home. Some cities don't do occupancy permits. And so the debate is how to, do we remove that from a requirement in the code? It has implications also to the budget. So we want to look at all those aspects in reviewing it and bring it before the council.
I was going to ask about occupancy. Your previous comment made me think about it. Are we talking about occupancy for residential and businesses, or just residential?
Just residential.
Okay, so we would still have the uncoupling.
Yeah, we still have the separation because with commercial locations, that's the safety of the public. So that occupancy permit is pretty critical for fire, for safety of the public to go into those spaces.
Yeah, no, I like, and I know like we're making progress on the comprehensive plan. We've got like stormwater, which touches on some things coming up too. And I love the idea of having like a periodic update, and you can let us know, like, I know we don't have dates on here now, and I know some of that's on how we prioritize things, but updates with like where we are on things. I'm excited to see these move on.
Well, thank you for this. I really dug into this one. So I just had overarching idea was I would like to see how we tie these tactics into the comprehensive plan as far as what do we want to get out of the comprehensive plan as it relates to our goals. That was one big thing on tactic 1. You talk about zoning codes and sustainable practices. I thought this document was perfect for that. So that would be, it has a lot of practical approaches to code and policies. And then on the tactic 3, again, the new comprehensive plan. I would like to take into account the land uses that are site and make them more site specific, i.e. The green space that's next to in the floodplain. That seems that's appropriate, you know, if there are structures in that floodplain, that's inappropriate. So I would just like to maybe consider how the zoning relates to the natural resources of that site. And that's all.
So just one thing with that, which is not something we've had time to address, but some cities actually create a zoning district for their parks and open space and floodplain. And when I was at Chesterfield, I did the code amendment, which separated those out. We just haven't had time to do that, but that would be a way to tie in with the comprehensive plan, a separation of your open space and your parks and your floodplain areas as their own zoning district instead of being zoned residential.
Okay. So I just have a couple of things. Back to the tactic 1 on the vehicle area 3, which is the housing stock. I could very well be wrong, but I think it makes some sense just to put that on hold until we're well through the comprehensive planning process, because given our most recent experience, I think in choosing how to move forward on that, the collection of public information is going to be vital as to which of these might be things that we'd like to pursue. And, you know, you said you have limited time to do that, which then, you know, vaults me over to something like lot coverage and stormwater. Maybe that goes higher on the queue as we wait for some of the things that will certainly be part of the comprehensive planning process.
Mara, I was just gonna add, I think unjustifiably so, and I'm gonna offer a suggestion without a recommendation. I apologize for that, but unjustifiably so, I think that it is a perception that it's difficult to do business in Webster Groves. And I don't know if this would be a combination between yours and Jenny's department, but reaching out to the public to demonstrate our openness, making that a tactic, I think would be beneficial. Just in general, just because I don't know why there is that perception, but like I said, I think it's unjustifiable. And I think it would go a long way to the public at large for them to see, hey, Webster Groves wants to create a economic business environment.
That's probably just highlighting what you already plan to do anyway.
Already, the county, our codes, the Mexican county codes, that's gonna help a lot. But I've heard actually from that.
All right. In the interest of moving along, thank you very much. Mara, next on our list, at time, you know you're up next. We're moving already.
Yeah, so mine, kind of along with the Mara training, customer service training.
Hey.
So training for our staff. Then as far as maintaining our pavements, we have a pretty high quality streets and we want to continue our aggressive maintenance programs so that we can maintain that. And then we also want to continue to hold utilities and contractors responsible when they tear our streets up. As you see, there's a lot of streets that are up right now. We're trying to get them to give us schedules on when they're going to get back to our standards. So we're going to stay on that. And then sustainability wise, we have a grant for recycling bins in the business districts. We are purchasing them right now, so we'll be getting those out here in about a month. So that'll help. And then also on the sustainability side, we're looking at changing our fleet to electric vehicles.
I'm going to ask one thing.
Yes.
Because you mentioned it. So I know we have some areas that really still we struggle with accessibility, just given the age of our community. But one thing that's come up with people I've talked to recently, fairly frequently, is even in areas where we've done pretty well. So for example, intersections where we made them wheelchair accessible. When contractors come and do their work, during the course of work, or when they tear out a sidewalk, do we have any way to hold them accountable for accessibility while they're doing work? Because that seems to me to be as important as you're moving along to those other places.
That's difficult when they're getting a hole in the sidewalk. You can have them put plywood over it, but there's a lip.
Yeah.
So, the ideal thing would be is that there's sidewalk on the other side, they just close the one side, so use the other side, so just try to get people onto the other side of the street.
Okay.
But we don't have sidewalk on both sides of the streets in the entire
Yeah,
city.
no. All right, questions or comments from all?
Sure, we'll go back next time. Same thing, if there are any goals, they should put metrics to it, I'll recommend that. And also, when you were, should goal number one, you said all residents in the apartment call on person's inquiry to be responded within 24 hours. That's nice, so somebody can be challenged, you don't call at 5 p.m. on Friday, and call you Monday, so you don't call within 24 hours. But don't box yourself in.
Gotcha.
So I think you respond to them in a very timely manner. You're the call, decide what time it is. I think you can say. And then on your tax number 4, long-term fiscal integrity. I would like to know more when it happens, next time you update. Your department and the spouse department work together to save money. I think that's good.
We help them out quite a bit. Tree removals, doing walkway paths in the parks and stuff. So saves them a lot of money rather than contracting it out. So,
Yeah.
So what you can't see is Scott nine the sidewalk.
he likes it, yes.
So you pay your department when you.
When we do the walk paths in the parks,
Yeah.
he has budget money, so we use that money for the person in the concrete. He doesn't pay our staff all the time. That's because they're here 7 to 3:30 Monday through Friday.
All right, other questions? Looks like not comfortable sooner. Next, we have Chief Curtis.
Thank you very much. We want to highlight, I think some the categories that are applicable to us. In the first, as far as providing excellence in service, one of the things that we do is make sure that our community service commander prepares quarterly reports, which she submits to myself. It's based upon concerns of the community service officer who attends different business functions, different organizations, and also on the citizen survey, and also from the feedback which comes from me more than her actually from the police community engagement board. Purpose of that is to identify potential issues for them to make recommendations, for us to make recommendations on how to address concerns, and then to determine what kind of action and progress that we made toward addressing those. In terms of achieving the diversity, equity, and inclusion, we have a recruitment plan for our staffing of the police department, which includes going to different universities and colleges. We try to direct this to those that have at least a substantial minority student population. We've recently gone to Lincoln University. We've also gone to some degree to Harris Stoll. We do send recruitment officers who can train in recruiting to try and get the people who are in the academies there at Lincoln University. They actually have a police academy on campus that we try and recruit from there. We also advertise and recruit in minority publications as much as possible. One of our goals there is to try and at least meet the population, the minority population within the city of Webster Groves. With rib section, there has been some turnover, but in general, for most of the time, we've met or exceeded that goal. As far as the female police officers, it's very difficult. There's over 50% population female in Webster goes. Difficult to recruit females in the police work, but we've really made significant efforts there. And again, unfortunately, right now we're not too close to it, but for most of the time we've had 20 to 25% of our workforce has been female police officers. And ensuring the long-term fiscal integrity, each division commander prepares a budget for their division. They meet with the supervisors and commanders underneath them, who audits all of the property. They take a look, they analyze the workload for calls for service, times that we get the calls, what our staffing levels are. So we try and make sure that we get the biggest bang for the buck when we address how we allocate our resources and also how much we need in resources. In sustainability practices, we are in the process of turning the fleet over. As you know, we just recently got 2 new electric vehicles. We're outfitting those. They should be on the, well, actually one of them is on the street, the other one should be shortly. We're planning next year to get a couple more, and at some point, we think that over time we will turn over most, if not all, of the fleet to electric vehicle fleet. Those are some of our highlights. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
And actually, I think this would plug in well under achieve diversity, equity and inclusion. And in the format of engagement, I want to thank you for the presence yesterday in the park. And not only did you see the presence of our officers, but the officer wasn't just sitting in the car. He was up walking around, talking to the people in the park, what have you. And I'll see at the meeting tomorrow night how many complaints, but it just didn't sound, it just wasn't as hectic this year, it seemed, as it had been previously. But I think that just going up and walking around and talking to people goes a long way.
I appreciate that. No, that's something officers who are up there are all very good.
And I thought, right there at Elm and Glendale, it always gets crowded with people leaving the fireworks. And I thought this year it was just so much smoother because there was officers out there controlling everything.
After that evening, we had provided a lot of statistics that they maintain. Now we compared us to meet how operations in the state of Missouri. So he already has his metrics.
All right, thank you. Next on our list is, this is coming forward. Those of you reading the document will realize this is our most verbose written. Man's good with words.
Lots of information.
Very good with words. I'm sorry, some people take that as a negative. I actually don't, because I use a lot of words myself.
Speaking one of my love languages. I'll give you really 4 overarching themes through the tactics. Number 1, prevention. Clearly, we can't eliminate the call, but we can reduce the risk. And through prevention, with education of our community, and we're looking for some new opportunities to engage our community. We have a robust prevention program for inspections of facilities, but that funnels into the second overarching theme of community engagement. So I'm excited because we have a number of community risk reduction initiatives that I placed in there, where we're engaging the community, but we're also educating them, which can correlate to reducing risk, which reduces the calls. So community engagement after that is training of our personnel. Really under the sustainability side, I approach that from 2 different perspectives, because as we move toward a more sustainability focused as a city, there is a training impact for our firefighters, because we need to be ahead of some of those sustainability changes, because those also become challenges for us. And then ultimately it's about service delivery, which is connected to prevention, risk reduction, as well as training. So some of those community risk reduction initiatives really in the fire service, much like police, we already run a lot of these the analytics
a lot of data at our fingertips. To be able to paint at least a little bit of a picture of what the numbers say to us and how those numbers translate from that quantitative side to the qualitative side of what does it mean and how are we going to use it to work to our advantage.
Questions and comments from the chief?
There's two excellent goals, got metrics that are going to measure it. But I did go to the EMS building review.
Yes.
So the city, we try to collect that ourselves or that out to the third party.
So we have a third party company who handles that for us. And our reporting software works in that process as well. We currently do soft billing, so we do bill for service. And depending on the type of call, there's some different levels, determines the billing amount. Our most expensive call clearly is our most critical patient. And so I met with Dr. Peoples and suggested we get some assessing of other departments around us and how they bill. We don't need to bill the most, but some of those calls we can recoup a little more of the money that costs the most. So just really presenting some numbers, seeing what Dr. Peoples would want to do, discussing it with the council, and then that's one area where we could increase some revenue based on the EMS side if we chose. Thank you. Certainly.
I just have one comment, which is I am really grateful and appreciate the perspective on prevention and education. You know, with the fire department, we've talked a lot about staffing, we've talked a lot about equipment, and we've talked a lot about a lot of things which are absolutely important. But I am very grateful for the perspective that says if we can prevent some of those fires and have a community that understands how to do that, that's critical for the fire service as well, and it's a great asset to our community if that's the way we're thinking. So thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am. And although we were excited to honor 2 crews that had life-saving CPR calls this past year, the goal is to educate our citizens in that classes for CPR, because clearly that early fibrillation is going to save a life. Because the first responder is that person in the immediate area before we ever get there. And so from a community risk reduction perspective, some home safety surveys to go through. It's not an inspection, but crews can go to someone's house and go through a checklist and make suggestions to make the house safer, which therefore could prevent an incident. CPR classes clearly for our people. And so smoke alarm blitzes in our areas where we see our fire volume increasing, or where we need to go through and install smoke detectors, because those save lives. So some new initiatives, especially I know some of these things were in place pre-COVID, but we're gonna take what we were doing and escalate it.
This is great. I appreciate the measurables. I love the calling out the new landscape with, alternate power sources and car chargers in people's garages and things like that. And another prevention thing and the goal to get to the next class 1 for ISO. I think that's
Yes, ma'am. We're actually up for re-inspection in August or September sometime. And a 2 is fantastic.
Right.
It's an elite group, but a 1, I was actually expecting Mr. Smith to ask me that about. But getting to a 1 does draw in those businesses because it helps their own insurance ratings themselves to make an ISO class 1.
Thank you.
I'm just going to have 2 comments, Chief. One is in relation to shared services with other municipalities. I know you mentioned that briefly in the EMS billing and looking at other municipalities. Or just say anywhere that we can figure out how to share services, including trucks and EMS vehicles with other municipalities. I think that would be extremely beneficial. And the second was just in regards to artificial intelligence and how it's being used in our fire departments throughout the world and country. I saw that Scotland had created this helmet for firefighters that can map out the whole area as they walk through it. So I didn't know what your thoughts are, and obviously in the future, driverless trucks and stuff like that would provide a safer environment. But
I might be retired by then.
well, in the state of Missouri, I don't know if our legislature will ever allow it, but in relation to where artificial intelligence is taking the fire department and just thinking about how that can be incorporated here in Webster Groves, I think would be extremely beneficial.
For sure, and clearly some of the technological advances, it'll become more affordable as it's more common and normal. Some of that stuff already kind of exists because we kind of rob what the military already uses. And borrow that, I guess, but absolutely, and eventually it'll become more affordable.
Yeah.
I did put numbers in there for EV fire engine. I'm sure you saw that, charging stations, so you were aware of that.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, thank you.
That's me.
Mr. Peterson's gonna multitask. Thank you.
Getting sort of good at the multitask thing. So Madam Mayor and members, thank you all. I have today the administration reports, which are 2 documents in front of you, finance, IT, public affairs, and then also the HR report. I just want to start with and highlight that our teams, while we are disparate and report to different people, and not all folks in that team report to me, we all do meet monthly. We call ourselves sort of the front half of City Hall, the City Hall service team. And our motto is very clear that we do our work the best we can because our work supports the work that all the other departments that have talked to you do. We are that foundational piece that provides the background of the city service to our fellow team members. So you will see across these goals a multifaceted look at how we really move forward and trying to take a lot of the tactics you saw. I think I would highlight, as you look at administration, tactic 1 right from the top is moving to the cloud, getting to cloud-based operations in terms of our long-term operations in that and maximizing customer relation experience. I can't tell you, not only for staff, but also from what I've heard from customers, how frustrated it is as they shuffle paper with the city of Webster Groves. You'll see on that on tactic 6 also that within 3 years, how do we move to effectively be a paperless operation? The less paper we can put in place. And we've already started. We report back on like our travel approvals and such, moving and just using tools we have in Microsoft Power Automate to create forms and workflows that can move through a process without needing to add new systems into the world. I did want to highlight there are some things here that do look outside of City Hall, as we talked about. The economic development plan, Councilmember Bliss, Councilmember Smith. I know we each have had some individual conversations about that. Really, how do we talk about what this economic development is, right? I mean, as I work with the 3 business districts and many other business owners, they all have a different idea of what should be the best thing for Webster Groves to do with a very limited amount of money. And the reality is that there may be something totally different than we haven't thought about. We need to really, I think, look at that plan, and I would, from the staff side, look at also who are those outside experts that have done this in other places and that can help guide us to really a more unified approach towards economic development. I highlight the public affairs. Not only are there some of what we call basic communications works, but some upcoming things that we're really happy about working with Public Works. Hear from a lot of folks about, I didn't know that Ameren was coming to dig up the street of Missouri American Water. How do we couple in with the excavation permits that go to Public Works to get that notice of when that work is going to be done and provide a notify service out to our community? So just some great tactics, and I don't want to shortchange human resources because they put a lot of work into that conversation themselves. And I think you'll really see some interesting tactics that they brought forward on how do we deal with becoming a premier employer, recognizing employees that bring their whole authentic selves to work and becoming a workplace like that, providing for alternate work schedules, remote working. And then also, how do we encourage and for retention purposes, but also for recruitment to become that premier workplace and become not only a premier workplace that people want to be at, but that people can model themselves in Webster Groves. So many tactics there between all the administration and internal services. Happy to answer questions as you have them. Thank you, Scott, for swiveling the camera. So,
Are there questions here?
Yes, going back to tactic 2 about response to employee in 48 hours. If we're going to box yourself into a corner, but you did say we'll call back and provide us. So I think that's very acceptable. And my next question is on the administration of finance. Tactic 6, you mentioned having tactic 5, a IT master plan for the next 5 years. Now, will the transition to the cloud be part of that master plan, or that's separate?
absolutely part of that. So I think the The reality is we've had a lot of ad hoc different improvements going on that all needed to be done. Not to dispute any of those improvements, but they haven't been part of the master plan leading towards, right? I mean, we've sort of talked about going to the cloud. What are those next steps? What are the preparations for an AI environment? That is coming sooner than we think to our work. If you stop and just think about a chat bot, how our constituents, many cities already have them. They think they're interacting with someone chatting with them, but in reality, it's AI on the backside. So how do we implement those kinds of features and really building out a plan so that IT can prioritize that work, and we also in administration can prioritize that to line up again with the tactics that the departments have presented. And so we're all moving the ship in that same path and direction.
I think that I think that probably benefit all of the well. So hopefully that will be part of how it can improve their efficiency and help them do the work.
Then,
I'm done.
I have a question.
Yes.
On the, I think it's, area 4, tactic 4, I was curious about, develop conversation with the community partnerships organizations leaning towards more non-government oversight of community functions. I was curious what that would be like.
Certainly. So we don't have many city-run events, right? I mean, we just came through probably our most successful and what has been historically been city events. But I will point out, and I'll pose this question. I always like to use Jazz Fest as my great way to examine this. Whose event is Jazz Fest? They will tell you that it's the city's. And the cities has generally said this, right? We don't have any control over the committee that puts that together. So in reality, this goes to the sponsorship policy, but also then to who these great ideas. We're a creative community full of great ideas. How do we help seed the right kind of organizations or groups of people to really take them and run them? Because we don't have the expertise on staff to be great event workers. There are things we will always, I'm not saying get rid of the 4th of July parade, or fireworks, nor Jazz Fest. I want to be very clear about that. But how do we help seed that community of, the community to really fill those roles and be the people that run them? Why is that important to the city? Well, there's a staffing, right, and obviously, but I think there's also that very big question about money, right? I mean, and really, what are these organizations going to do? And we've already done some of that with sponsorship policy, talking, Old Webster Trade Association and the city need to sit down and really talk about its memorandum of understanding. Same with Old Orchard, but these other events that they have. Webster Arts is a great example of how can we really come to a memorandum of understanding for these many events they have, many permits they seek from us. So that's not just an ad hoc one-off event, but really what's the yoking partnership between that nonprofit and the city.
Thanks. I was going to say I'm really interested in. It's just nice to hear about Area 5 Tactic 3 about creating a community foundation. I think the benefits to having that would be broad, and that we could help with the housing goals that way by having basically what we'd be doing is creating another pot of money that's used for charitable purposes and granting opportunities. And I think that could apply to housing. It could apply to DEI, and could even apply to the arts. There's a talk about a mural. It's like, who pays for it? And instead of having to, like I say, run around and try and find money for that, we've got this pot available. You can figure out how to use those funds. So that was something that was a good idea.
I just want to add that that's not an idea that we as staff can just do. It really takes the right
Yes.
people in the community that are interested. But if there is interest, how do we really step into that space and help? Let's overcome the need to file with the states, and we can help with those basic things if there's really a community interest to move things forward.
Clayton has one. That's a good model. Yeah.
I'm curious about the conversations about that as well. When we get to that point.
Other questions, comments?
Dave Buck has brought up multiple times since I've been on council the idea of creating like a teenager or children's advisory board. I don't know exactly how that would be accomplished. I know Clayton does something similar, or they have in the past, but I think it's something worth exploring. I know it would take a lot of staff resources and time, but if we can maybe somehow collaborate with the school district or the other private schools within the area, there's a potential to create a democratic fulfillment kind of concept.
So I don't want to, you're absolutely right. There's resources and time and all those things that are devoted. The National League of Cities does have a youth council program, and I think they offer some pretty good resources on how to create one. And those events, generally, you do see a whole youth track. So it gives the opportunity, just like Councilmember Smith, you and I were in DC for the legislative conference. Members of the youth conference can come, be a part of those meetings, then have their own separate tracks as well. So there's infrastructure around that. I think the real question, what I've seen in other cities and counterparts, and certainly we'll look at Dr. Peoples, it's not a recommendation. We need some real dedicated staff understanding, not necessarily full-time, but who's going to be responsible, and then also understanding the city's real role of taking on, under 18-year-old children into events and those things, even just here in town. So.
School district actually has their own, and I think it's the junior and or senior. But they do give them a voice, not voice to vote on things, but to hear what what's on the student's mind. And then it's up to the board to make sure they try to respond to that as much as possible. So yeah, it is a great idea to do something like that. That gets them involved with city government and it keeps them active. And their voice of the youth. Major question I'd like for them to answer: why do they graduate from college and don't come back?
I will say that Sarah and I have been in a series of meetings and are continuing to with representatives from the Chelsea Center at the high school, is kind of work on how do we strengthen that relationship with you. I think one of the things we know from this community engagement board is it's keeping someone or some group of students engaged. So are there ways we can build a bridge first and then get ourselves to that place? I think this is important. Are there other questions or comments? I'm going to suggest we hold our council discussion of strategic planning because we have both the recognition of our firefighter of the year and the public hearing during our regular meeting. So if we could go ahead and adjourn for just a couple minutes, have our regular meeting, and then we'll spend a little bit of time at the end of our regular meeting talking about strategic planning, if that's all right with you all. All right, so why don't we plan to be back here at 7:35 to begin our regular meeting. All right, welcome everyone to the regular meeting of the City Council of Webster for July 5th. We welcome questions, ideas, and comments from persons in attendance. Members of the audience may, however, comment only when recognized by the mayor. We ask that the comments be limited to 3 minutes in order to complete the agenda within a reasonable time. If you do, so we do have a public hearing today. So if you would like to comment during the public hearing time, please do so when that issue is before us. And then we will also have our regular remarks from the community time if you have something on a different subject. Those, as I said, are limited to 3 minutes. If you'd like to make a public comment, you fill out a card like this, please do so. If you're on Zoom, we'll give you the opportunity to use the raise your hand function for public comments. And we will start the meeting with the roll call.
Councilmember Bliss.
Here.
Councilmember Franklin.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Alexander.
Here.
Councilmember Richardson.
Here.
Councilmember Hickson Shepherd.
Here.
Mayor Arnold.
Here, we have the great privilege, this as our first real agenda item, besides the roll call, of honoring our firefighter of the year, Billy Kreitler, who we have a proclamation for, and I know was honored already at the Fire Department Awards, which, by the way, was a great event. Thank you very much for that. So I am going to invite Billy to the front, and the council and I will come down, and we will read wonderful things about you from this. Yes. Lord, you gotta come all the way to the. All right. I remember that time. All right, here we go. Like this. Yes, come on. Whereas fire firefighter paramedic Billy Franklin has been chosen firefighter of the year for 2023. And whereas Billy began his career with the city on July 25th, 2017, and has served in a number of roles, including firefighter paramedic and driver operator. And whereas Billy drives and operates all equipment with great expertise and was named acting captain this year, which brings with it the responsibility for the crew, firehouse, apparatus, equipment, training, service delivery for the rotation as a supervisor and leader of the crew. And whereas Billy is also the water operations team lead, which works to coordinate trainings and deployments for water events in and around the city to provide better service to the community. And whereas Billy embraces traditions that make fire service unique from generation to generation, while creating new traditions that inspire and move us from what it is to what it could be. He is a mentor for new hires and is extremely dedicated to the department and community, and he has a strong commitment to public safety. Now therefore, I, Laura Arnold, Mayor of the City of Webster Groves, on behalf of the entire City Council, wish to thank and honor firefighter paramedic Billy Kreitler for his exemplary service to our community and for making Webster Groves a safer place to live, and do hereby proclaim Friday, July 7th, 2023, as Billy Kreitler Day in the City of Webster Groves. Say a word or two.
Yeah, I just want to say, Billy, thanks for all one that you do. Thanks for these firefighters and what it means to be a leader, what it means to have a heart, the head, the heart, the hands to do the work of firefighter paramedic. And as we shift culture where we need to be, that you're on a leading edge. Thank you. Absolutely. I'm letting you guys come up. That's fine.
There's no search. Right, so we got rid of every trust.
Councilmember Alexander, can't see you. I'm back there. Sure. There you go. All right. No,
That's good. It's not a big meeting.
Good, you guys beat me to it. As I usually say, you're welcome to stay, but we understand if you have other things you'd like to do. All right, we now will go to our public hearing for different dynamics at 45 West Lockwood, an application of different dynamics for conditional use permit. It will allow an educational facility school to be art use in the existing structure located on a 1.67 acre lot at 45 West Lockwood Avenue in the D Commercial District. I have read the title. I am officially opening the public hearing, and that means Director Perry is on.
Great. So good evening. You have before you this evening a request for a conditional use permit. This is very similar for those that might remember back in 2021, where the church was also asking for a similar arts use within their building. So they do have a building that has a number of educational classrooms. And each time a new tenant wants to occupy a portion of that space, the CUPs are personal to the applicant. So each time we've had a new one that's come in for this particular location, we have also, just FYI, talked with the church about maybe doing a larger overarching one to include multiple potential tenants in the future. And we are working with them on that so that they wouldn't have to have each tenant come in each time. We just weren't ready for it at this time. So I'm going to walk through the basic zoning and talk through the conditions we would put in place and see if there are any additional questions. The property is located in the Old Webster district and is zoned D commercial district, and it does have CUPs. It is surrounded on pretty much all sides by D commercial as well as PC planned commercial. The property you can see here, there's the church building, which faces on Lockwood, and then the more educational classroom space, which faces on Moody. The history of the property, the church was built in 1867. In 1923, the property was zoned E industrial district, as well as part of it being D commercial district. In 1956, the entire portion was rezoned to D commercial district. 1959 and 1961, the church had special use permits, which are now what we call conditional use permits, to reconstruct and expand their facility. Since 1962, the church has also operated a daycare and early childhood care facilities on that particular property. They have a small playground towards the back of the property that they also own on the other side of Moody. In 2021, there was a CUP that was approved by the council for educational facilities, school for the arts, for some additional classroom spaces in the same building, but on a different floor. I always remind you that the comprehensive plan is something that we look to. In this case, because it's just a request for a CUP, we're not changing the zoning. It stays in conformance with the comprehensive plan. I always have to remind you of our 5 factors that you're going to be reviewing. This is what the Planning Commission reviews as they move it forward to you. It is that the use will not substantially increase traffic hazards or congestion, substantially increase fire hazards, adversely affect the character of the neighborhood, adversely affect the general welfare of the community, or overtax public utilities. The use that's being requested is for small group musical programs for adults with cognitive and developmental disabilities. They would be serving in small groups of 6 to 12 participants at a time. Many of those participants would also have a caregiver or a family member who would be bringing them to the building. They intend to hold these in a classroom on the 2nd floor. The other CUP was in classroom spaces on the 3rd floor. In this case, they're only using 650 square feet, so essentially 1 classroom space. When we do this, we always look at the parking analysis. The way that the code works, they need 1 parking space. As you probably know, this church has quite a number of parking, both their parking that's immediately to the east, as well as an additional parking lot to the north. So they do have 92 off-street parking spaces, which are used at different times for the daycare, for some of their other uses that work within the church, as well as the other school for the arts use. But they are able to work throughout the time frame, so staff has no concerns about the parking within this facility. They're requesting hours of operation of Mondays through Fridays, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. We were looking at the overarching in the future as they would expand potentially, as well as Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. We also always with CUPs have to look at the dimensional regulations. In this case, we would not add any additional setbacks or anything related to the height or anything related to the building, as no changes are being proposed to the existing structure. So before I get into staff's recommendations, this was moved forward to the council with a unanimous approval from the Planning Commission. Any questions before I go through the recommendations?
Please carry on.
Okay. All provisions of the city code shall apply except as expressly modified in this particular ordinance. All activities of the school for the arts shall be located within the existing structure on the property. The hours of operation, which I've already spoken of before, would be put into the ordinance, and the conditional use permit is personal to the applicant and shall not.
All right, one more chance. Any questions? Comments? Just a quick question again about the second floor. You talked about the School of the Arts. Is that on the second floor or the third floor?
This one's on the second floor. The one you approved in 2021 is on the third floor.
So who occupies these other spaces on that?
They're mainly vacant. They've been talking through, the church has been talking about the possibility of having a number. I've actually talked with, I think now, 4 different potential tenants with different types of arts, classroom spaces. Each of them has had different thoughts about how they want to use the space. This is just the first one that's come through. And again, I've kind of talked with the church about maybe doing a big overarching CUP that could cover multiple ones, so they wouldn't have to each come in and get their own CUPs. And I know a lot of times with the churches, they have to work through their own process to get permission before they can do that. So in order to allow different dynamics to move forward in the timing that they would like to, we went ahead and moved this one forward.
All right, other questions? So Jessica Ingram of Desert Dynamics is here and filled out a speaker card. If you'd like to come forward. There. Okay. Please feel free to share whatever you'd like with us.
Yeah, I'll make this very brief. First of all, thank you so much for this opportunity to be here. At Different Dynamics, our mission is to champion the life-changing power of music for people of all paratypes and all abilities. We are very grateful for the church to give us this opportunity to work with us in order to continue our mission and have this opportunity right here in the Webster communities. Thank you all. I'm available for any questions about our permit or just about our organization.
Just curious, so is there a particular age group or is it all ages? I mean, is it adults or is it?
That's a fantastic question. We do work with all ages. This, what prompted us to find a space that we could kind of call home is a program called the Music Exploratorium. It's going to run Tuesdays and Thursday nights. It's for adults with cognitive and developmental disabilities, ages 18 and up. So that is what we're going to be doing first. And then we do a lot of children's programming out in the community, like Variety, St. Louis, Easter Seals Midwest, organizations like that. And so eventually we'll be able to do our own children's programming as well.
So you're not going to mind answer this question. So 18 and up. So then with the work that you do with the individuals that are involved in the program, do they get opportunities based upon what they've learned in there to engage in other opportunities outside of your organization?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's all about inclusion and making the arts accessible. So everything from performance opportunities to being able to, we work with some of the local performing arts organizations and do sensory friendly training as well with them so that they can continue to further our mission to make the arts more accessible. So we also do like concert attendance type of things where we'll get a group together and go to the symphony or to the opera, things like that.
And the reason I ask is because of now. But it's because I know that, and I don't remember, it was something that I saw on TV, but there was a young man, well, and he was probably, he had Down syndrome, and he was probably 16, 17 years old, and he was able to perform or as with his high school, and he told his father that he wanted to be an actor. And so, I mean, that just really warmed my heart. And I know that it's not out of the question. So I was just, when I saw that, I just saw this one of those vehicles that maybe provide exposure to children and then assist them in finding other opportunities to continue that interest.
Yeah, of course. Definitely. That's our mission.
All right, thank you. It is very nice to hear from you, especially tonight when we're talking about our strategic planning, which an emphasis is on inclusion. So
Wonderful.
yeah, it's a good day. So thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Right. I also have a speaker card from Dave Buck.
Dave Buck, 124 South Elm. Truth be told, I have never liked the 5-cup evaluating factors because they focus on the absence of a negative and no answers. So here are my 5 positive yes factors for different dynamics. One, as just said, has a positive, hopeful, and inspiring mission to champion access to the life-changing power of music for people of all neurotypes and abilities. Yes. 2, has great leaders judged by the high content of their character as confirmed by respected and knowledgeable members of our community like Janice Seeley. Yes. 3, promotes the timeless and needed values of kindness, compassion, empathy, acceptance, and inclusion, all in a church. Yes. 4, uniquely supports and advances the arts. Yes. 5, and most important, it is a force for good that improves the lives of kids of all ages. Yes. Bottom line, Marie, this is a win-win for Webster Groves and different dynamics. I should know. I am a particular neurotype. I have been mentally ill with bipolar disorder since I was a kid. And in addition to the great doctors I've had and taking my meds every day, it was my high school vocal music teacher in Wichita, Kansas, Dr. Vernon Nicholson, who believed in me and instilled in me the life-changing power of music, and I have been singing joyfully ever since, even at the age of 70. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dave. Do we have any public comments on Zoom? We do not. All right. So that, I believe, means that our city attorney is up to enter into the record.
And having closed that public hearing, I would move for the admission of these exhibits. The planning commission staff report by Mark Perry, Director of Planning and Development for meeting date June 5th, 2023. Number 2, the written statement from different dynamics. Number 3, the preliminary floor plan. Number 4, the Director of Planning and Development's PowerPoint for the City Council this evening, July 5th, 2023, and the final zoning code for the city. I love the vision of all those items.
I'm gonna let you and Katie duke it out because she said now I'm supposed to close the public hearing.
Go with Katie.
So either way, the public hearing is now closed. Councilwoman Hinkson Shepherd, could you call for the first and second reading, please?
Yes, I'd like to call for the first and second reading of bill number 9231.
Bill 9231, first reading. An ordinance granting a conditional use permit to different dynamics to allow an educational facility, school for the arts use on approximately 1.67 acre tract of land in an existing structure at 45 West Lockwood Avenue in the D commercial district in Hattersville, Area 2.
Is there any discussion? All right, second reading, please.
Bill 9231, second reading. An ordinance granting a conditional use permit to different dynamics to allow an educational facility, school for the arts use on approximately 1.67 acre tract of land in an existing structure at 45 West Lockwood Avenue in the D commercial district and matters related to thereto.
All right, thank you. So we will have final action at our next meeting. All right, we will move on now to remarks from the community visitors. I have one speaker's card from Amanda Burnt. I hope I said that right, Amanda, but please come forward. And you have 3 minutes.
Oh, good evening.
Well, actually, if you would just give us your name and address too as well for the record.
Yeah, my name's Amanda Burnt. I live at 816 Greeley Avenue.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all for a wonderful 4th of July celebration yesterday. I enjoyed our parade immensely. As we have for 40 plus years, we walked up to the old train station, which is right there at Big Bend on Baker Avenue, the 100 block of Baker Avenue. And what started as a wonderful celebration got very scary very quickly. In the past, we've had that blocked off through barricades at either end as hundreds of people, and I'm not exaggerating, hundreds of people walk from the neighborhood to watch. They find a spot on the grassy areas, they find a spot at the edge of parking lots. There's only 3 homes on that block. It's not a typical residential block. It is mostly commercial residences. There is not a lot of traffic. And having it blocked is never really been a huge issue in the past, but the last few years, things have gotten a little less organized. And last night I watched as there were cars parked on both sides of the street, single cars trying to squeeze in between as people were walking grandma and pushing a stroller and trying to set up chairs. And it was frightening. And it really felt like this year, as a resident, I felt kind of let down that care was not taken to make sure that that section, which has great elevation, we can see the fireworks. I personally have rheumatoid arthritis. I can't walk all the way down to see those fireworks from that neighborhood. I can't take my mother down that far. That's too far, but we can at the end of our block, basically, just sit there and watch. So I would really respectfully ask that a plan be put in place next year. I put this out on the Community Connect and there was a lot of pushback and a lot of people saying our police and firefighters are very busy. They shouldn't be worrying about blocking off a street. I agree. And in that case, then that should be put back onto the city. These are hundreds of residents. It would take one overly tired driver to make that a tragedy. It would take one out of control kid at 9:45 who's overly tired to run out and be squashed. And that just seems like with a very small amount of prevention, we could really make an impact that wouldn't hurt anyone, wouldn't impede traffic. It doesn't affect Big Bend. It wouldn't really affect anyone negatively, but could ensure that we are safe as we go up and watch the fireworks. So thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. And just so you know, as a general rule, we don't in the meeting respond to public comments, but I'll make sure you hear from somebody this week.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
All right, is there any new business from anyone up here? No new business? All right, let's go to unfinished business then, please. Council, woman, Alexander, would you please call for the third reading of bill number 9229?
Actually, no, I can't.
Oh, that's
fine.
thank you. That was just a little test for you.
I'm not, okay.
Okay, so we'll pass that along to your colleague.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd like to call for the third and final reading of bill number 9229 and subsequent adoption.
Second.
Bill 9229, third and final reading. In order to permit the subdivision of certain property at 818 Holland Avenue and 826 Holland Avenue.
And I will just say for the record, if anyone watches the recording, I shouldn't have called on Councilmember Alexander because she's recused herself from this vote. All right, I think we're ready for the vote.
Councilmember Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Hickson Shepherd,
Yes.
Councilmember Bliss,
Yes.
Councilmember Franklin,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander, Mark recused, Mayor Arnold.
Yes. Right, Councilmember Bliss, could you call for the third reading of bill number 9230, please?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to call for the third final reading of bill number 9230 and subsequent adoption.
Second.
Bill 9230, third and final reading. In ordinance amending chapter 60 of the traffic code by repealing article 4, section 60.160, speed regulation generally, and amending article 16, section 60.940, schedule A, a maximum speed for designated streets.
Does this ordinance effectively get rid of our school zone speeding that we put in place? No.
No, it's going to move it. There are parts in there where we have some limitations that have been overturned by the state statute. It's to make sure that we're consistent with state statute.
Yeah, I was just trying to understand what the state statute was.
As I understand it, it's not the zones, it's the special speeds that are set up in particular places.
And the chief is coming forward as you speak.
Let's try to go over it.
And our Steve said it's absolutely correct. Basically what it does, it affects, we used to have special speed zones for 25 miles per hour with increased fines. We can no longer do that because of the state statute and the Supreme Court rulings.
So can we solve this data? It's just not fine.
We could have speeds, you just can't have the double lines.
Okay.
All right, that was our discussion. Are we ready for a vote? Let's have that vote, please.
Councilmember Franklin,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander,
Yes.
Councilmember Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Hickson Shepherd,
Yes.
Mayor Arnold,
Yes.
Councilmember Bliss.
Yes. Right, we are on to new business. Councilmember, I guess we'll come back to Councilmember Alexander. Could you call for the reading and passage of resolution 2023-30?
Yes. Mayor, I'd like to call for the reading. Call for the resolution number 2023-30 and its subsequent adoption.
Second.
Resolution 2023-30, setting a goal of 0 roadway fatalities and serious injuries by 2030 for the SS4A, parent safe streets and roads for all end parent planning and demonstration grant.
Right, just so everybody's clear, this is so that we can turn grants in on Friday. Right.
That is correct. So transfer of grant requires the council action, so thank you.
All right, how about a vote here?
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander,
Yes.
Councilmember Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Hickson Shepherd,
Yes.
Mayor Arnold,
Yes.
Councilmember Bliss,
Yes.
Councilmember Franklin.
Yes.
Right, Councilmember Smith, could you actually, is there anyone who wants to remove the minutes from the consent agenda? No, all right, Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, call for the approval of the consent agenda.
Any discussion? All right, time to vote on that.
Councilmember Alexander,
Yes.
Councilmember Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Hickson Shepherd,
Yes.
Mayor Arnold,
Yes.
Councilmember Bliss,
Yes.
Councilmember Franklin,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yeah. We have no appointments to boards or commissions tonight. Didn't we, I don't remember a closed session. We have this. Very good, too. Very great.
And I like it.
There's a lot of truth.
All right, so then we'll call, just a second, we'll call for the closed session. We'll go ahead and do that since it is brief, then we'll open back up to do our final discussion of strategic planning. Right, does that work?
I think it could be either way, so. I'm gonna have to restart the Zoom. Yeah, so we just have to restart the Zoom. So you may want to just stay.
Oh, okay, so let's just finish strategic planning then, so we can
And then come
keep
back.
the
and do that.
technology going the way it is. So if we're close. So if we go back to that, I think as a council, I guess there are a couple things that came up as we were discussing. I can find the right note here. A couple things were brought up that are potential additions to this in terms of the tactics. The two I jotted down with this idea of a youth council and then assessing park inventory for future use, sale, or development. He also jotted down that the request has been made by members of council to include metrics and end dates for staff believes that it's applicable. But we need a timeline to revisit this. And then I think that's it. If I've left something out, let me know.
The only thing, and I don't know, is the Missouri, the planning tools, conservation planning tools in the communities document.
And so the other, that's a recommendation to staff that as they develop these tactics and work on these tactics, that be consulted as part of the rest.
Yeah, and it applies to several departments.
And you are going to get that document to Dr. Peoples for.
I've given her a hard copy and I will send her one.
Let's do this sort of the easy way, the easy stuff first. Councilmember Bliss suggested a 6-month schedule work session to check in and see where we are. Is that acceptable to council? Is that acceptable to the city manager? Yes, all right, on behalf of all of you as department directors, okay. I'm not sure, Emerson, what you want to do with the metrics or end dates. Is that you're satisfied making that recommendation?
Just making the recommendation.
Thank you. I guess then the next question before we really have a large discussion of the document, not large necessarily, but of the comprehensive document is, what to do with these additions. They both come from you, which is why I'm looking at you, Councilman Frank. Would you like to suggest these as work session topics to see if we add them that way, or would you?
The parks one, I would be willing to put on hold until after the charter review commission, because in the event we were going to do anything, I would imagine we set up another condition for that. So
Okay.
I think that would be pretty encompassing and take a lot of time. And staff time. And the youth council, I think, is just something to keep on our radar as we go forward. I'm not saying that we have to establish it now, but maybe we just have to round.
Keep it in the thought
Yeah.
process. Okay.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Okay, some of that work is already occurring with parks that came out of the mowing and property discussion. We were looking at some of the needs and restrictions. So it is ongoing.
So we'll share that information with you.
And didn't we have a review for the odd city-owned properties about selling those as well? Could that be part of this conversation?
I think it certainly could. It's just requires a lot of time to the deed work, so it has been started. Don't have to end of when they'll be completed.
Okay, so I think that, I mean, my question to you all is, are we ready as a council to draft a resolution and go ahead and adopt this document as it's been presented to us? I'm going to ask you first, actually, Emerson, as chair of the subcommittee, is working on this.
Yeah. Definitely ready to, the record and the city manager and administrator did an excellent job in getting this stuff together. So we as a council, we had a specific deadline goal, so they fulfill the areas where they're involved. So I think everybody did an excellent job.
Right, other comments, statements?
That's exciting.
I know, it's like simple bill, but sorry.
It's simple now, but it was.
No, I know, right. It's a lot of work, right? I mean, I feel like now it's on paper and it'd be just following up.
Yeah,
It's something that's trying to come up with ideas.
And the main thing for me is that, we've laid out something for the council coming up to continue working on.
Oh, yes. All right, then, I will work with the city manager to get a resolution on our next agenda so that we can, formally endorse this. This claim, not this thing. All right, so would you like to inform Councilmember Bliss on what criteria we are going to run for this session?
This would be under, yes, this would be under number 1 and 4. And it would be, let's go with 1.
Yes, I'd like to call for an executive closed session related to attorney-client privilege communications, Missouri statute 610.021, open parenthesis 1, close parenthesis.
Second.
All right, we're ready to go.
Councilmember Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Hickson Shepherd,
Yes.
Mayor Arnold,
Yes.
Councilmember Bliss,
Yes.
Franklin, Councilmember Franklin,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yeah.
Councilmember Alexander.
Yes.
Thank you again, to all the department directors.